When I entered the bathroom, a glint on the carpet caught my eye. It was the reflection of the sun filtering through the blinds. Intrigued, I looked down, barefoot and cautious, taking care not to step on anything sharp. Caroline hadn't mentioned I've dropped anything here, but you never know. The little paper circle of the aluminum was almost camouflaged against the color of the carpet until the light hit me, revealed it. I bent down and picked it up. It was the backing of a pill blister, the typical that remains when you take out a pill. When I turned it over, I noticed some marks on one side, a number 2, which I assumed referred to Tuesday since today it was Wednesday. It seemed like yesterday's pill. I don't take any medication. I'm perfectly healthy at 35, as is my wife, Caroline. Both we had recently passed our annual medical exams without any problems. So why was there a pill wrapper in our bathroom? Several daily pills came to mind, but the birth control pill stood out. I took one vasectomy 2 years ago after we had our second child, so I assumed Caroline was no longer taking the pill. She's never had any problems with cramps or her menstrual cycle. How lucky she is. So why was I taking pills again? My mind briefly wandered to dark thoughts, suspecting some illness that he hadn't mentioned to me. But then I remembered our medical reports were impeccable after the examinations we had shared. If the aluminum foil was here, the pills must be nearby. Locking the door, I started searching. Finally, I found them hidden in a box of tampons under some aspirin. It was the same blister pack I had used before, of my surgery, when we weren't actively trying to have children yet. Why had I come back take them? There was only one disturbing possibility. I was having encounters intimate with someone who could get her pregnant. She was cheating on me. Caroline and I had been together for 9 years. I had just finished college and was studying to be an engineer while she was working as an assistant. We met at a bar, and although the connection wasn't immediate, he agreed to go out to dinner with me. Caroline, almost as tall as me with my 170 meme, was a former athlete with a slender figure and small breasts. Her most striking feature, in my opinion, was her amazing butt. We dated for a year before getting married. When I was 26, our children ages 5 and 2 were the reason 2 had the surgery to make sure we wouldn't have any more. It seemed like we had the perfect family, or at least that's what I thought. Caroline went back to work after each leave of absence. Motherhood, committed to her employment despite the high cost of care childish. I co-founded an engineering company with some friends and we enjoyed the work. Although we didn't, we were rich. After finding the pill wrapper in the bathroom, I put it back in its place and decided that I should think things through calmly. Confronting her at that moment wouldn't accomplish anything. I needed a plan and proof. What would happen next was uncertain. First, I had to gather information. I went to work as usual, mulling over my options. Who was involved? When had it started? And how long had it been going on? It was someone at your job, maybe even your boss. It could be related to any of your past communications. And the most painful question, are our children truly mine? Despite the emotions boiling inside me, loss, betrayal, pain, anger, too focused on getting answers. Turning to the internet, I ordered some kits DNA testing to discreetly verify the paternity of our children. I also purchased equipment surveillance, small voice recorders for your car and purse, and tiny cameras to install at home. I doubted that he was having an affair at our house since he was rarely there without me, or so I thought. I needed access to her phone. I knew of a tool that could clone her device and copy messages, emails, electronics, and calls. This required buying another phone, which took several days. During that time, I watched Caroline closely. She behaved with complete normality. Our intimate life continued its usual course, 1 or 2 a week. I never noticed anything suspicious in his behavior or in his sudden showers upon returning home. Either he wasn't fooling me or it was incredibly discreet. She had probably been doing it for so long that it seemed routine. The packages arrived at my office on Friday morning. Avoid questions. I received DNA test kits, voice recorders, cameras, a new phone, and a cloning kit. Ready to proceed, I left work early. At home, the nanny was giving the children dinner. I took charge of positioning the cameras so discreet. One in the bathroom, another in the living room, and one more in the bedroom to have a clear view of our bed. After helping the kids with their bedtime routine, I collected samples of DNA from them and me, and I quickly sent them off for analysis. Caroline, he came home at the usual time, and we continued our usual routine, exchanging news of our days without much listening. After dinner, he took a shower, who gave me the opportunity to install the voice recorders in his car and in her purse and clone her phone. I checked the cloned phone for any messages or incriminating emails, but I found nothing. Or it was very cautious, or not, she was deceiving me, I couldn't decide. The end of sentiment. The week passed routinely with our morning closeness before the children woke up. We spent the weekend of the week together without interruptions, which made it likely that she would be taking the pills as indicated by the days left on the blister. On Monday, I informed her that I would be working from home. She headed to the office, which gave me the opportunity to recover the USB drives from all the cameras and check them. The bathroom footage confirmed that she had taken the pills. The bedroom camera revealed a surprise. On Saturday night, while I was cooking dinner, showered in our bedroom, texting someone from Miss Amaris, a second phone that wasn't in his purse. He hid it in the air vent. After checking it, it wasn't there, indicating that he took it when he leaves. He needed access to that phone. The first solid evidence of her suspicious behavior. Reviewing the morning footage, I saw her pull out the driver's phone and place it in his bag before leaving for work. That night, after she came back and took another shower, her bag was free of phone, knowing that he had probably hidden it in the duct. I quietly retrieved it from Sonia's room. I cloned it and put it back. Almost he discovered me when he came out of the shower and found me near Sonia's bed stroking her hair. He asked me softly, "Did something happen?" I shook my head. "Sometimes I like to sit with one of them," I whispered, just to remind myself how lucky I am to have such wonderful children. He smiled. "You're a sentimental old man," he mocked me. "Come on, before the wake-up. Aile." The next day I finally looked at the cloned phone. It was then when my world collapsed. Tears started rolling down my face as I sat in my office chair, ignoring the hum of the intercom. Finally, my secretary, Michelle, knocked softly and came in. Michelle, always professional and dressed conservatively, she looked older than her age indicated with her slim figure, red hair, and green eyes. Our relationship had always been strictly professional. I never gave her reason to think otherwise. She'd told me about persistent abuse from another partner, threatening legal action. He said that stayed because I treated her with respect. He angrily demanded her dismissal, giving us an ultimatum. She or he ended up with 60% of the ownership, losing a partner. Michelle stepped out briefly to attend to a previous task, returning to my office and locking the door. He brought me tissues and asked me in a low voice, "Tell me." I showed him the phone. Messages between Caroline and an unnamed person revealed secret encounters and intimate details of love that only a long-term lover could know. Details about Caroline that I was completely excluded from. It was like if I didn't exist in his private world. "Do you know who?" he asked me, keeping professional. I shook my head. "How do you know?" he inquired. I told him about how I found a silver marker on the bathroom floor and discovered the pills. The words flowed easily throughout the conversation. She stood silently holding my hand. "A new gesture for us. You need more information," he said. "We will have the DNA of the kids by Wednesday. Can you wait until then?" "I don't know," I replied. She nodded. "Our team in Portland urgently needs you," he said. "Booking a flight for me. You'll be back on Thursday. I can't focus on that now." "You tell Caroline," he said, taking my phone to send a message. Caroline responded quickly, confirming that she understood and loved me. After giving me back my phone, she pulled out his. "Lorraine," he said into the phone. "Michelle, yes, thank you. When are you free this afternoon?" "Perfect, see you then," he said firmly, addressing me as he usually did in the work. It was almost a relief not to think about delegating decisions to someone else person. When I came out of the bathroom, she handed me my coat. "Where are we going?" I asked. "You have a date with my friend," she replied. I followed her. Lorraine, Michelle's best friend and divorce lawyer, was working on Michelle's own divorce after discovering her husband's infidelity. Within moments, Michelle explained my situation to Lorraine while I watched in astonishment. "This wasn't supposed to, that was my life." Lorraine, experienced in these matters, focused on gathering all the details. "Gary," she yelled. "It wasn't me," I shouted. She was talking to someone else. I felt a sting across my cheek when Michelle slapped me. A start woke me. I saw surprise and amusement flashed in Lorraine's eyes before she became serious. "Gary," she asked. I nodded. "Do you have a plan?" My engineering mind sprang into action upon hearing his words. "Destroy them both," I said. I expected a reaction from shock, but Michelle even smiled. "It's okay," Lorraine said. "I understand, however, that's not legally an option." Let's explore other avenues. She presented the options without advocating for any. First, do nothing. Continue acting like you don't know anything in order to live a peaceful life. Second, an amicable divorce citing irreconcilable differences. Dividing assets, pay child support. Third, go nuclear, sue for infidelity, challenging paternity, and more. My thoughts raced. The option 1 was out. He wasn't going to be a complacent, betrayed man. Option 2 didn't fit. I'd invested too much in our life. Option 3. I declared nuclear. Lorraine smiled. Okay, I'll fill out the paperwork. I suggest you start discreetly monitoring your wife to gather more evidence. Find out who, when, and where. We definitely need more evidence. Can I keep this phone? I asked. It's not doing you any good, she commented. I nodded and handed over the phone. Michelle and I left the Rains office and she took me to a small family hotel, reserving a room for me. Go shower and order something for the room, he instructed me, taking control. I'll come back later with some things for you. I moved mechanically. My world was falling apart. Ordering room service in a room of Mindendus Hotel was like it was on autopilot. It was the only way to manage stress. 9 years gone in an instant. What hurt me was my ignorance. How could I not have noticed all this? It was his boss, Thado, whom he always returned after each child. He said that he valued his work and his independence, but it was just an excuse to be close to his lover. I looked at the minibar, tempted. When Michelle walked in, don't even think about it, he warned. You need a clear head to plan. Drowning in your sorrows won't help you. Will help plan, I asked bitterly. I had a plan, a loving wife, 2 beautiful children, and now this. I'm a man betrayed by a fatherhood uncertain. My life is in ruins. And you want me to plan? She watched me briefly, then looked at his watch. Okay, he said firmly. It's all business. The pie party is over. Remember all the obstacles we faced in the start our company? The plans also fell apart. Then, what does this have to do with numbers? He pressed. I don't know. He replied a lot. There was once when the patent office lost our application, and still. That's how we beat Hay. The bank tried to foreclose on us again before time, under pressure. Okay, he interrupted. In all those moments, when did you sit down and give up? Was it different, so why? He asked what was different back then. Something to fight for. I explained, a family that depended on me. Now you have a family, she pointed out. A larger one, 141 people and their families who they're depending on you to handle this. None of your partners can keep the company afloat like you can. If she keeps half, he could sell to whoever offers more. And Headingley could take everything. That's what you want. I looked at her, realizing she was right. I couldn't let everything I had worked for fall apart. I needed to secure the future of my family, even though my relationship with Caroline was uncertain. With a renewed determination, I sat down with Michelle and began planning. Ensuring the future of the company and the well-being of my family became my priority. At that moment, clarity replaced confusion, and I felt resolved. Michelle noticed the change in my attitude and nodded, approvingly. That's the Gary I need now, he said. Someone who plans for the future. We spent the afternoon strategizing to ensure the future of the company. Initially, I considered selling my shares to the partners, but Michelle vetoed that option, fearing that they would mismanage or dismantle the company once they take control. To maintain the authority, we chose to establish an offshore trust, where I would sell the company at its market value and would continue as CEO with a nominal salary protected from local jurisdiction. This move would make me a millionaire on paper once executed. I also planned to liquidate my 401k and tap into the home's equity. The house, purchased solely from my name when Caroline was not working, required a new evaluation. I compiled tasks and contacted my lawyer, Brian Spencer, who was handling the Matters Company's legal department, to arrange a meeting the next day. After Michelle left, I fell asleep, deep, and woke up to Caroline's message asking about my sudden departure. I assured him that I would return on Thursday, but I refrained from showing affection. Michelle arrived early the next morning, and after a shower, we had breakfast at a nearby restaurant. Despite my agitation, I concentrated on practical steps forward. Michelle informed me that Brian had a meeting available at 10, suggesting we go to the bank first to access my 401k and the equity in the home before meet him. I see the benefit of consolidating my finances, I said, but no, there will be a record of my assets. Couldn't the court order me to divide them with her only if you still have them? Michelle smiled. That's where Las Vegas comes in. After you build up your capital, spend a week there and spend it all before filing for divorce. So in the court you will appear ruined, deeply in debt. Your house could facing foreclosure and your income would barely cover expenses subsistence. Unless, of course, the children are not yours. If they are, put all your 401k into a trust for her college fund. Caroline won't be able to touch it. He might even end up paying you alimony. When will you receive the DNA results? I hesitated, taking out my phone. The company said they should be online today. I checked the email with the link, but I left the phone on the table. He wasn't sure if he was ready to see the results yet. Can I? He asked. Michelle. And I handed her the phone. She browsed through it, studying the screen. I watched his face, waiting for a clue. He looked up. Not yet, the results are in, he said. They should be back in 12 hours according to the monitoring. Let's go, he said, getting up. The bank should be open. Release the equity in the home and collect my 401k. It was quick. I closed all our savings accounts, including the children's college tuition, transferring the money to an account in my name. The joint account with less of $10,000 remained intact. Our lawyer raised an important point when we summarized our plan. You forgot one thing, he said. You have a marriage contract. I saw it. I was surprised. I didn't know that was part of the partnership agreement. When I started, all partners were required to sign a prenuptial agreement to protect the company in the event of a separation, he explained. It only covers the company's assets, not personal ones. As an employee, you can only claim your salary and your 401k. That's all I'm suggesting. Started without criticizing your lawyer. Divorce is investing all the value released from your home in the company. Buying the shares of one of your partners. Robert seemed interested in making money. You might need a loan from the pension fund. Company to cover the difference. Payments will come from your reduced salary, minimizing your assets evaluated. Since everything else is linked to the company, it remains protected. Your credit rating could suffer foreclosure, and you will lose half of the remaining bank funds. Apart from that, she won't get anything. We can adjust your salary to make hers is higher, which would make her responsible for child support. How am I going to live? I asked. If all my salary goes to loan payments, I will still need to cover living expenses, including my other 2 children and possibly more. Let's stop talking about children, I advise. You have decided on a course of action. If they're not yours, you'll get involved. I'm not sure, I admitted. It's too overwhelming to think about right now. I'll need wait until you have the facts before making those decisions. Remember your plans with the other lawyers, he recalled. He would bet that the lawsuit against his company would generate enough to pay off the loan and restore your full salary. After all this, you will also be able to claim the expenses of the father of the children if it is proven that they are not yours after the divorce, separate from the agreement. Could you contact Robert for me about the sale? I asked. I don't think I can handle that right now. He nodded. I'll get back to him and update you. We shook hands as we left his office. A moment of relief washed over me. As we walked, plans began to align. A satisfaction filled me up. Then reality hit, reminding me why we were doing these plans, leaving a void in my chest. We sat in a restaurant for lunch when I dared to check my phone again, clicking on the email link. I passed it to Michelle, watching her face, looking for a reaction. I'm so sorry, Gary, he said softly, returning the phone. I read the results myself. None of the children were biologically mine, although shared the same father. The shock of losing both children was overshadowed by the fury at the betrayal. She not only deceived me about her paternity, but also convinced me to become a vasectomy. Gary, Michelle said sharply, pulling me out of my thoughts. Now is not the time. Stay calm, we'll get through this. Fighting for control my anger, I took a deep breath. I wanted to hurt someone. Thoughts of revenge crossed my mind. Even hiring someone to take care of the man who was with the children, who I thought were mine. Michelle recovered and led me out of the restaurant. Laura called. Does she want to see you? She said as we headed to the Lorraine's office. Lorraine looked serious when we entered. I have a preliminary report from a private investigator. He said Caroline had a visitor last night. A man stayed in your house. I have cameras at home, I replied. I'll change the hard drives and we can review the recordings. Okay, he nodded. Do it now, then we analyze it. This material could be crucial. The nanny is with Sophie and James at the play center. I can't go back without arousing suspicion. I'm supposed to be out on business, I said. Laura checked her phone. The babysitter is busy. I'll keep you posted and let you know if she leaves. We sped toward my house, which was about 30 minutes away. I quickly swapped the hard drives, checked the house, and found nothing unusual, and returned to Lorraine's office. Reviewing the recordings, I avoided watching the images of the bedroom. I couldn't bear to see any more. It confirmed my suspicions. His boss, Bill Wright, entering in the house with his own key when James greeted him as Papa Bill. I burst into tears. I couldn't see any more. Lorraine witnessed my collapse. Michelle, for the first time, once hugged me while I was crying. After a while, I pulled myself together. "Would you like Rist?" Lorraine asked, but I declined the offer. The challenge diminished slightly, replaced by a growing anger. "What's our next step?" I asked. "I've obtained the terms of employment from your wife's company," Lorraine explained. "There's a clause against breaking the law. It gives us grounds to sue for breach, especially since the person involved is a manager, senior." We summarized the advice from my company lawyer, which led her to call him immediately after receiving copies of the prenuptial agreement in the mail electronic. "This changes everything," he said, reviewing the documents. "Your partner's plan is perfect. If you are willing to sell, we invest everything in the company to protect her. We can sue her company for breach of contract, him for emotional damage, her for misrepresentation on the birth certificate, and both for child-related expenses. It all depends whether Robert wants to sell," I commented. "We'll have to wait for his decision." Michelle drove me back to the hotel where I was staying. Just as I got to my room, there was a knock on the door. It was Michelle. "Come on," she insisted. "You shouldn't stay here alone." "Why not?" I asked. "Because you'll either think about it or go to the minibar," he replied firmly. "I need to keep an eye on you." Gathering my things, I drove to her car. "Where are we going?" I asked, feeling indifferent to my place. She replied, "I have a spare room you can use." I started to protest, but his glare silenced me. I'd never been in the Michelle's house, surprising me to find it almost as big as mine, although it was only on one floor. He showed me a room with a bathroom. "Take a shower and get changed," he told me. "Dinner in 30 minutes. We ate in silence. The food, it looked delicious, though I couldn't taste it. My mind was racing with thoughts and emotions, too turbulent to understand. I was furious but numb, focused only on executing my plans. I was on autopilot, driven for a purpose. As I was wondering what to do after dinner, the doorbell rang. Phone. I jumped, hoping it was Caroline. It wasn't, I said. "Hello," I greeted reluctantly. Robert said, "Why?" He asked simply. Robert and we were friends since college, where we were brought together by a project that laid the foundation for our business. At first, I had the majority of the company's shares due to a larger initial investment. "Caroline is giving me Keating," I said. "Straight up. All this time," he exclaimed. "All this time," I confirmed. "And none of the children are yours?" There was a pause on the line. "So do you want to tie all your assets to the company and rely on the prenuptial agreement?" he asked, clearly understanding our agreement of society better than me. "I will keep 5% and continue as an engineer consultant," he proposed. "I'll work it out with HR. The rest is up to you." "Okay," I agreed. "I'll have Brian prepare the papers," Gary said after a moment. "I'm so sorry. You may not feel it now, but it will get better in time. I promise. I've been there, you're there now, and yes, it does get better." Only then did I remember that he had been through a divorce about 4 years ago. I had kept the details private even though we were close friends. I knew that it hadn't been easy. He himself had used the marriage contract. The next morning, Michelle woke me up with a cup of coffee. "Let's go," she said. "We still have a lot to do." We first visited Brian Spencer, the company's lawyer, who already had everything prepared. The documents needed to buy out Robert's share were quickly completed in less than 30 minutes. I liquidated everything. The value of the house, the savings, and the 401. I also got a loan against the company pension plan to cover the remaining amount. On paper, he now owed almost $1 million. My salary had been cut in half due to deductions. Then we went to Lorraine's office, reviewed the purchase documents, and was satisfied. "This is perfect," she commented. "I'll draw up the papers today and we can file them on Monday. Where do you want it served?" "Somewhere that embarrass her more," I replied. "If we could do it on a Super Bowl billboard would pay, so I'd be happy to." Laura laughed. "We'll notify her at her office," decided. "Monday morning at 10, as long as the papers go through by the court by then. If I present them today, we should have confirmation tomorrow afternoon." I nodded in agreement. "So what's next?" asked Michelle, taking control. "We have 2 more stops before you head back to the office and act like you just fought a fire in Portland." "Can you stay home until Monday?" "I think I'll have to answer. No need to guess," he assured me. Tell me, what do you need to hold out until then? I'm not sure, I admitted. Any good news? She smiled. Let's go. Surprisingly, we stopped at the medical center where I had had all my checkups in the operation that he claimed he could never be a father. Why are we here? I asked. Aren't we? You wanted some good news? He provoked me. Let's go inside. He arranged for us to see to my doctor. I quickly glanced at Michelle, who stayed behind as I entered the consulting room. Please. I gestured for her to join me and she nodded. Dr. Harrington, he didn't comment on Michelle's presence. He knew her role in my life and our situation. Gary began. I understand you're asking about a vasectomy reversal. My eyes are opened. Is that really possible? I looked at Michelle, who had a small smile on his face. Yes, it's quite feasible, Dr. Harrington assured me, with a success rate of around 95% for reversals performed after 3 years old. Although it involves a longer surgery under general anesthesia, it is very likely to be a father again. Tears welled up in my eyes. The possibility of being a father again filled me with hope. I understand that it is a lot to assimilate. Dr. Harrington continued giving me information about the procedure and its costs, mentioning that it was not covered by insurance. If you decide to continue, we can schedule exams. Thanks, Doc, Michelle intervened, taking the papers. We'll get in touch. She stood up and I followed her out of the clinic. Is this good news for you? She asked, gently smiling at me. I impulsively hugged her, feeling grateful. Thank you, I murmured into her hair. Then I quickly pulled away. I'm sorry, it's okay, Gary gently reassured me as we got into his car. One more stop, then back to the office. There was visited Bill Way's house occasionally over the years, while Caroline worked for him. And his wife Stephanie lived in a gated community just outside of town, where they also hosted events corporate. When Michelle and I arrived, Stephanie was waiting for us and welcomed us without hesitation. She led us to a room that appeared to be Bill's office. He indicated the seats and sat down. Grain. How can I help you? Asked Stephanie, addressing him directly. Me? I struggled to find my voice before finally asking, did you know? Stephanie sighed sadly. No, she admitted. I suspected it, but I never had evidence. I couldn't find anything concrete to take to a lawyer. If I had, in fact, I would have sued him for everything he had. Join the club, he muttered. Michelle gritted her teeth. Stephanie wanted to know if I had proof. I felt it. There is no proof that none of my children are mine, I said. My voice trailed off as emotion overwhelmed me and Stephanie offered her sympathy. She shared her own suspicions about Bill and Caroline over the years, but their efforts to uncover the truth had been in vain. He expressed regret for not having acted sooner if he had been confident. What are you going to do now? She asked, curious about my next steps. I debated whether to reveal my plans to Bill's wife, not knowing if she would inform him when I returned. I finally decided that I wanted him to be as surprised as I had been. The real question is, what are you going to do? I replied. Stephanie understood and didn't blame me for my caution. He asked me for a recommendation for a divorce lawyer and Michelle provided him with a business card. Thanks, Stephanie said, taking the card. Will a week be enough? I nodded. That should be fine. Great, he said, standing up. It was clear our meeting was coming to an end. Stephanie hugged me briefly and kissed my cheek. I'm so sorry, she repeated. Take care, she told Michelle, who did a slight grimace at the affectionate gesture. He deserves better than what that woman did to him. We returned to the office and spent the rest of the day finishing up my Portland tasks. At the end of the day, I headed home. Michelle knocked on my door at the usual time, looked inside, and mentioned she was leaving for the day. Back to her usual attitude professional, his return to normal left me feeling lost. There was felt a growing connection, but maybe it was just in my mind. I told him, "Good evening, thank you for your help." I worked late at the office, catching up on a lot of things. Around 8, Caroline sent me a message asking when I would be home. I estimated it would take an hour or two more, explaining that she needed to finalize some post-trip matters. She anticipated being asleep by then, expressing love with kisses once again, but I couldn't answer. I continued working until almost 11. Waiting for was asleep when I got home to minimize interaction. The house was dark when I returned, apparently normal. I went to see Sonia and James, both sleeping peacefully. Emotions surfaced and I hid in the bathroom to avoid Caroline seeing me crying for children that were not mine. I decided that his fate was still unresolved. even though I had no obligation to any legal basis. My love for them persisted. How could I abandon them so soon after they were my pride and joy? Now they stood as reminders of Caroline's betrayal. I decided to wait uncertainly about how events would unfold. Struggling to sleep, I woke to find Caroline outside of the house. The housekeeper was looking after the children, and my thoughts took a dark twist. She knew they weren't mine. My blood boiled imagining her complicity in Caroline's infidelity. Come Monday, I vowed to make sure there were consequences for her actions as a nanny, making sure that she never worked in that role again. Wait, what am I doing? Venting my anger on someone who has little chance of getting a positive result. It is a lose-lose situation. I reasoned that she might have risked her job or would have left if she had told me. But she clearly cares for our children whom she has cared for since before Sonia was born. Such maybe my anger is misdirected. I went to work. Michelle was already there, all business, as if the past days had not happened. She had cleared my marketing agenda, he said. I settled in and she brought the morning coffee, something I'd never done before. Before? Marketing, I questioned. Since when am I involved in that? He smiled, a strangely comforting sight. We need a strategy that explained the last part. Lauren's plan. Confused, I asked, what plan? We need to do it public, Michelle insisted. Tell all her friends, family, groups of the church, everyone who knows her about who she really is and what she's done. I look terrible, I protested. They're going toto ridicule as the betrayed man raising another's children. You have to tell your version, Michelle replied. If you don't, Caroline will, and her version will make you look even worse, saying that you are abusive or unfit. The people may hesitate, but speaking first will undermine your defense. Michelle compiled a media package with evidence of Caroline's infidelity, including a report from a private investigator, a DNA test confirming that he was not Elam, father of my 2 children, and videos of my house, including one where James greets Bill and others from areas that Don't had seen and did not want to see. Later that morning, I received an email, Lorraine's email. Stephanie had provided him with Bill's DNA, which had matched my test, confirming that he was, in fact, the father of the 2 children. Children who I suddenly found it impossible to consider as mine anymore. We incorporated this new information into a package for Caroline's parents and mine, his brothers and his closest contacts on Facebook and LinkedIn. Copies were scheduled to be delivered by courier on Monday at 10 a.m., synchronized with a planned event. I just needed to get through the weekend. I drew on my engineering background and devised a plan. In less than an hour, I designed and I assembled a small device equipped with a motor, timer, and battery. Could be set to vibrate after a specific time. On Friday at night, after the babysitter left, I discreetly placed the device under the baby's pillow. Sophie. It was time to activate it. At the usual wake-up time of 6 a.m. the next day, everything went well. Sophie's entrance into our room in the morning prevented any closeness. I smiled to myself, having occupied Saturday with chores long abandoned by Caroline. When she mentioned it, I pointed out coincidentally they needed to be done that night when Caroline tried to start a approach. I pretended to be asleep after he came out of the bathroom. On Sunday, his interrupted sleep daughter by my device made her return to Caroline's room. We spent Sunday with the kids at the zoo. All day I struggled with the emotions looking at Caroline, the woman he loved or thought he loved, and the children I had cared for as my own. I nearly broke down several times, biting my cheek until I was bleeding to keep it together, but I made it through the weekend. Monday came and I was decided. I informed Caroline that I would be working from home, supposedly to discuss matters with the nanny. When she left for work, he seemed absorbed in emails and hardly I acknowledged saying goodbye. After she left, I noted the time, 8:15. The nanny knocked on the door from my office proposing a trip to the game center, which I declined, choosing to keep the children at home, surprising the nanny. James, he was disappointed but accepted despite his enthusiasm to go pumpy. Shortly after 9, Michelle arrived at the house surprising me, but I received it inside. It was the first time I had made him coffee. At 9:30, we joined Lorraine for a conference call. Gary, Lauren began, this is your last opportunity to stop. I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying that if you've changed my mind over the weekend, now is the time to talk. I didn't answer firmly. Then we'll see you on the other side, Lorraine confirmed. Everything was ready. He was monitoring my email, waiting for service confirmation. At 10 a.m. sharp, the first email arrived, followed by the second 3 minutes later and the third 5 minutes after that. Then my phone rang. I hoped it was Caroline, but it turned out to be my mom. Gary, Hi, Mom, I answered. What, come in? He asked. Did you read the package I sent you? I asked. Yes, so you know as much as I told you? Caroline has been cheating on me, probably throughout our marriage to her boss. The children aren't mine. I'm divorcing her, Gary, you can't. No, Mom, I have to. I'm working. I have other calls. I ended the call only for it to ring again immediately. This time it was Caroline Gary I didn't answer, waiting for her to continue. We need to talk, she said. I remained silent. I'm going home. And with that he hung up. Caroline is on her way, I informed Michelle. Saldry offered her. I wanted to ask her to stay, but she didn't. I couldn't find the words. I just looked at her. Call me, she said. Do you know what's going on? When he left. After 20 minutes, Caroline arrived at house. I heard his car pull up outside. He didn't bother to go in through Thegarage. Uncertain of what to expect, I waited as she entered the house in my office, taking a seat in front of me. Gary, I'm not interested, I interrupted. In fact, I'm not interested, I corrected her. I don't even want to. I didn't interrupt her. I don't want to hear a single word of you. You lied to me for 9 damn years. None of the children are mine. Mom, you talked me into doing absectomy while still taking birth control so you can continue with Bill. His eyes widened at my words. So no, Caroline, I continued. I don't care what you have to say. My lawyer's card is in the package you received when you were notified. If you have anything you think you should know, talk to her about it. And the children, he asked. What children? I replied, I don't have children, and if it were up to you, I never would have had. I could ask myself why you did this to me, but I don't want to hear another lie. I'm not interested in your excuses, justifications, or reasons. I want this to be over so I can save what's left of my life and move on. I called the nanny into the living room. She was listening to me through the open door. You're fired, I said immediately. Go away now. What? He exclaimed. Why? Because you covered for her, I pointed at Caroline. Did you know she was having an affair with her boss? And I don't know if you knew the children weren't mine, but you definitely knew what it was happening. I have evidence. I envy you talking about the kids with Bill. Get out. Caroline chimed in. Gary, you can't fire her. I pay her salary. The nanny looked at Caroline gratefully. Okay, I conceded. I've already contacted the agency informing them that you were an accomplice to an infidelity. If Caroline wants to keep you, he will have to take care of your salary, taxes, vacation, pension, leave for illness, and insurance. The nanny turned pale. Losing her job and being removed from the agency's records would make it nearly impossible to find a new one domestic work. The agencies now communicated with each other. Get out, I said. And she hurried out. You had to do that, she asked Caroline. You started talking again, I replied. I told you I don't want to listen. Nothing. What I want is for you to pick up your things, take your children, and get out of my house. This is my house too, he insisted. According to the documents, it's not, I interrupted. It's registered only in my name. Until the courts say otherwise. Go away, my raised voice surprised. James entered the room. Mommy, he said. Sonia fell with a look of shock and tears running down her face. Caroline stood up and walked towards her daughter. I closed the door to my office and stayed inside while she was packing. A few minutes later, he came back with Sonia in his arms. Are you going to tell her? Goodbye to Sonia? No, I told her like this, she's not my daughter and he's not my son. Take them Penguin Arkema's, Dad Bill, and let him take care of his children. They have nothing to do with me. Gary, go. I heard the front door close, and a few minutes later his car started up. He was gone. I finally exhaled, feeling like I had been holding my breath for an eternity, and collapsed. I heard the door open and jumped when arms wrapped around me. I buried my head in my hands. Looking up, I saw Michelle hugging me. She pulled me close, and sleeping in his embrace, I took some time to recover. I had just thrown away 9 years. My marriage, my children, my life, everything was gone. I didn't want to face the world again. Michelle took control again. Let's go, said Michelle. Laura mentioned that it could take Caroline about 4 hours to obtain an emergency order to occupy the house. Due to the children and this being our marital home, she will return. Really? Do you want to let her take pleasure in kicking you out of your own house? We picked up some clothes and important documents. I needed to figure out where to stay, but we loaded my car in the car of Michelle with my belongings and we left. First, we stopped at the office where I was notified. Later that day, Lorraine called me to update me on the procedures. Not only was there an order granting Caroline the occupation temporary home, but also a restraining order prohibiting me from coming within 100 meters of it. If needed to retrieve something, I would have to schedule it with Caroline's lawyer, Tommy Owncost. Confused by the situation, I found myself relocated to the Michelle's guest room. My clothes were in her closet and all my documents were neatly stored in the cabinets of his office. A week had passed since that Caroline filed for divorce. I worked during the day. Then I returned home with Michelle to eat and sleep. In the mornings, she would brought coffee, prepared breakfast, and we traveled together to the office. Our interactions remained the same. It remained strictly professional, except for a comforting hug during my first breakdown at home. The smiles were rare given the circumstances. On Monday morning, we met with Caroline and Bill's employer's lawyers. The details were unclear to me, but apparently we filed a claim for an amount that the company could not pay despite having insurance limited to $1 million. His lawyers were very formal. Lorraine, my lawyer, seemed pleased. "What's the next step?" her lawyer asked. Laura responded, "Immediate and permanent dismissal of the senior member with loss of pension benefits, in addition to retaining Caroline on staff for 3 years with a payment of 1.5 ounce." I disconnected during their discussion. Eventually, they came to an agreement on the terms. Although my share was reduced to $50,000, this would help settle part of my debt to the company's pension fund. "The payment will be made once the divorce is finalized," Lorraine said. They nodded in understanding. Lorraine continued to accompany us to the next meeting with the lawyers for Bill Rye. I left his office with $500,000 more. Now I had enough to pay off the pension loan completely and set aside a small amount for after the divorce. My last meeting of that day, it was with Caroline's lawyers. She was present, but she avoided looking at me. When I walked in, Michelle and Laura were at my side. "The financial claims in the divorce petition are unconscionable," Caroline's lawyer began. His client, as CEO and majority shareholder of a company valued at approximately $20 million, not to mention assets, savings. "Let me interrupt," Lorraine intervened, presenting some papers. "According to the prenuptial agreement signed by both parties, the company is not divisible in divorce. My client recently made a substantial additional investment in another company, depleting most of his savings, his 401k, and the equity in his home, borrowed from the company's pension fund. Because of this loan, his salary has been reduced. He now earns less than his client, and I will seek support, provisional while he stabilizes." "And the children?" the lawyer asked. "Laura," she replied, "DNA evidence proves that these children are not hers. She falsified birth records to fraudulently name my client as the father. In addition, we are seeking damages for having coerced him into a surgical sterilization under false pretenses of paternity. Your client can accept the terms of the divorce as they are. Vacate the marital home and receive half of the joint account currently valued at $943. The lawyer reviewed the documents, then looked at Caroline and finally at me. "Gary, please," she begged. "N years," I said, "N fucking years. Day after day, you lied. There's nothing you can say that I want to hear." Caroline looked at her lawyer and he nodded. He signed the papers. I wasn't present when she left our house. Instead, I received a letter from his lawyer confirming that the restraining order was lifted and that the house became mine. Despite contemplating returning, I chose to put the house in sale. Although it didn't completely cover my bank debt, it helped save the gap, leaving the bank satisfied. 2 months passed and he was still living in the Michelle's guest room. After our divorce, Caroline moved back in with her parents. Despite presenting solid evidence, they strongly supported me and refused to communicate with me personally. It was no lost home. For reasons unknown to me, Stephanie did not keep her promise to divorce Bill. I didn't ask any more questions. Because of the loss of his corporate job and pension, they had to sell their house in the gated community and move to a small apartment. Bill managed to get a good job thanks to his connections in Seattle sports market and their skills, although with a higher income lower than before. I had no idea if Caroline and Stephanie had met. I hadn't seen Stephanie since that day in his lawyer's office and had no desire to do so. I was at my desk at work when Michelle knocked and walked in without waiting. "Answer." "Bill Rye is dead," he announced bluntly. "What?" I exclaimed. "How?" "Apparently Stephanie caught him with Caroline again." He explained, "Shot." I leaned back in my chair. A wide smile spread across my face. I tried to suppress it, but persisted. "That couldn't have happened to a nicer guy." Finally, I commented. Michelle laughed. "Are you mad at me for feeling happy about this?" I asked. "Not at all," Michelle replied firmly. "That idiot got what it deserved it. By the way, this just arrived. He put an official envelope on me. Desk. We both knew what was in it. I took it and opened it. That's it, everything, I said in a low voice. I'm finally a free man. Finally, he repeated. Michelle unexpectedly leaned over and kissed me. It wasn't a brief kiss, it was a full, passionate kiss that left me stunned and breathless. When he pulled away, I leaned back in my chair, surprised and tense. For 9 years, it began gently. I've been by your side. You are the most honorable man I've ever known. You never once looked at me inappropriately or tried anything, and I admired you for that. I've been waiting for this moment for 9 years. And now that you are free, I want to show you that not all women are deceptive. We make a great team. I know you inside out like any wife knows her husband. And you know me too. Please give me a chance to prove it. I was speechless. The memories of our time together flooded my mind. Before Caroline's betrayal was discovered, I realized that he had genuine feelings for Michelle. It was impossible not to develop them after working so hard closely for so long, especially during my marriage to Caroline. I didn't need to reflect about those feelings. They were already crystal clear. Do you have something to say? Majam asked with obvious concern. Something strange appeared on his face. How many? I asked. Confusion crossed his face. How many what? He asked. Children, I clarified. How many children should we have? Yeah,